What is this life if, full of care, we have no time to stand and stare?
There you go, mate.
In doorways, under bridges, in churchyards, by air vents, on mattresses, on cardboard, under cardboard. We see them in towns and cities across the country: Hull, London, Leeds. Rough sleepers looking for somewhere safe out of the cold and rain, somewhere to be themselves, hungry, needing a drink, walking, needing to sleep. We've all seen them, helped or ignored them. Homelessness, visible, invisible. It can be easier not to deal with it, and like the elephant in the room, easier not to talk about.
The Trust was originally set up to manage the requests of support from local people who wanted some help. With offices in Hull, London and Leeds, we noticed that more and more bids were coming in from homeless charities, asking for volunteer resources, shower rooms, outreach workers and beds for their projects. They were dealing with the issues on the streets and providing facilities. All three cities are suffering similar problems, and the crisis is getting worse. It's a huge challenge that nobody wants to discuss. It's the elephant in the room. And people don't see how they can help directly, thinking it's just about giving cash or food or blankets. We commissioned the sculptor Laurence Valares to create a family of elephants out of cardboard boxes to help us raise awareness of the issues and the support services out there. Enhancing what they do will make a difference. The elephants are a metaphor. They are large and visible, but fragile. They are out of context, in the wrong place. Then our elephants become estranged, and the story can be followed. So baby elephant George went on his travels around Hull, London and Leeds, and this is what he found.
Our criteria as a charity is anybody that's at risk of homelessness, anybody that's suffering the effects of homelessness, or anybody that is currently homeless. So when we talk about people that are suffering or affected by homelessness, we're talking about family, friends, loved ones of people that may have a family member that's currently homeless or potentially looking at becoming homeless. And really people at risk of, that could be anybody from somebody who's at risk of eviction. It could be a 17-year-old child leaving the care setting for the first time. It could be somebody leaving prison. And what we want to do, we want to look at everybody who is affected by homelessness and give them the same level of care as everybody else. So regards rough sleepers, we work with anybody on the streets who's either entrenched or newly street homeless. And the aim for us is to help them move forward into accommodation, whether that's hostel, temporary, independent living. Again, families and children, lots of families and children around the UK that are at risk of homelessness. They could be escaping domestic violence, there could be a bereavement in the family, and really it's looking at all those different types of people who can actually become homeless, how the people can become homeless, and what we can actually do productively to help them move forward with their lives.
Seymour Place is a place where homeless people can come in off the streets and find some refuge, some comfort. And also we have services for them on 2 different levels, in the sense that it begins at quite an immediate urgent need level with food, clothing, laundry, healthcare, showers. But then there's a lot of follow-up care to actually help change the person's circumstances by helping them get onto benefits, helping them get into accommodation. So the idea is that we give you refuge, and relationship and community is given here, whilst on that foundation we use that to then springboard you to change, basically.
I'm not going to stereotype our service users because they are all different, they're all individuals. However, there is the presence of mental health issues at various degrees with just about all of them, to be honest with you. Substance misuse, yes, it features very, very highly. Most of our service users have some form of substance dependency, whether that be drugs or alcohol. Our job is to give them time at the end of the day. There are other services out there that are supporting the homeless. There's other services out there that are supporting rough sleepers, and they all deal with all the homeless and rough sleepers who actually actively want help. The ones that we've got don't actively want help. They are, in their minds, quite happy living in the situation they're living in. They're what we call entrenched rough sleepers. And what we give them is the time needed to actually form a good bond, a proper bond between our outreach worker and the service user, something that other services haven't got time to do. So that's our primary mission, because once we form that bond, we can then work with them to achieve their goals. If their goals are to stay on the streets, that's what we'll do. We'll support them on the streets, but in a way that is as healthy and as good for them as possible.
Sometimes when people have been sat on the street for a long time and they feel like nobody's acknowledged them, they can start to feel like they're invisible, that they're somehow not as valuable as of a person than everybody else going about their daily lives. So when you do then stop and just say hello and just give them that friendly face, that can help stop them feeling like so sort of lonely, I guess. So.
No, there's no one in here today. Lots of belongings though. Someone's definitely here at the moment. Here is a regular spot for sleeping. It tends to be popular on the basis it's hidden away, it's sheltered, they're away from the weather conditions of rain, snow, the wind, and they can, believe it or not, make themselves warm. So, and it's hidden from the public. They want to feel safe, but without people necessarily knowing that they're here. But at the same time, it is very sheltered.
So mental health and homelessness obviously has a huge correlation and link, and that can be anything from depression, anxiety, through to serious mental health conditions. And again, many people end up homeless because of some crisis in their lives at some point. And many people who are homeless could well still be going through some form of crisis. So mental health has a massive part to play.
We've seen an increase in mental health issues that are underlining, that are not what you would think are your major mental health issues, but there's a lot of anxiety, a lot of stress, a lot of people being really overwhelmed, forgetting things as well. We forget as human beings we need joy and we need love and we need to be able to share what life is about, and you can't do that when you're constantly worried about where you're going to sleep, if you're going to afford where you're going to sleep, how your work contract's going to work out, whether it's full-time or not, and whether you're going to eat anything that's nutritional.
A lot of people have got underlying mental health issues which they're controlling because they're in a society which they're supported by their family, supported by having a job. Once they're out on the streets where there's no support whatsoever, the mental health issues can start manifesting themselves. They're living on the streets where it's dangerous, it's new to them. They start mixing with people who they don't know, but they're there as a sort of like little community on the streets that they've moved into. So they're like an outsider in there. They can become very anxious, become depressed, and you've just got to try and put yourself in their position where they have no support whatsoever. Their support really is what's offered to them by other rough sleepers, which generally speaking is alcohol and drugs. Alcohol and drugs are not the best things to take if you've got underlying mental health issues. It manifests itself.
That was a 48-year-old chap. He's been homeless, street homeless for a couple of weeks now. He had been in supported accommodation, well, in a hostel. He's got a companion, he's got his dog with him, little Jack Russell, and unfortunately there's been an altercation with the hostel he was staying at and he's been asked to leave. He has been trying to access emergency beds. On some occasions he's been able to get in, but on the nights he hasn't. He's been sleeping rough in his tent, so we've just offered him some advice, recommended he gets back down to the hostel to have a word. He has put in an appeal, so hopefully, you know, that might work and he may be, you know, provided with a bed again.
You could say that they're happy living on the streets, but they're not really. As I said before, a lot of them have got mental health issues. It scares them to get into the system and to comply with all the rules and regulations that are there to actually get a house. It scares them to be in a house having bills to pay, being taken away from their social structure, because they live on the streets in the city centre. All their friends live on the streets in the city centre. The chances are, if we can manage to get them into a tenancy, it's going to be on the outlying parts of Leeds somewhere. We're not going to get them a tenancy in the city centre, so that takes them away from all their friends. So they're putting a flat right on the edge of Leeds. It could be a £2-3 bus fare into the city centre each way. Who they're with no one, they've got no support whatsoever. They don't want to leave that support.
I've been homeless for 7 years, so I've been in and out of prison. I keep going to prison to sort myself out for a bit of accommodation, and it was only when like one worker said to me, said, Lee, you know, like, prison's not the answer, you know, but to be honest with you, at least in there you get 3 meals a day, you know, you've got the roof over your head, it's warm, it's clean, it's tidy, and with having no family, I'm brought up in care, you see, so.
When we talk about people wanting to go to prison for shelter and some kind of comfort, certainly over the festive period, we're talking about people that are destitute and are desperate, people that really feel like all their options have gone. They can't see the future, they don't see a future in themselves, they've given up on themselves, they don't consider having a criminal record as any kind of problem for them, because they don't see themselves moving forward in the future and they don't see the barriers that having that criminal record brings. So they look at it in a very simplistic terms of it's dry, it's warm, there's a bed and there's food.
People give me cigs, people give me food, people give me milk, they give me money.
The thing that I found most shocking was that 80% of people that you see on the streets aren't often rough sleepers or entrenched rough sleepers. A lot of the people out there are beggars, still with complex issues, but not the people we were trying to focus on.
We get a lot of feedback from our clients that they feel invisible. That when they're on the streets they feel invisible, they feel that they're constantly being stepped over, walked past, ignored, or pretended not to be seen. And I think something that's really key is to just acknowledge someone being there, acknowledge their existence, have a chat. And in terms of, you know, people ask me all the time, you know, what should you do if someone's begging and things like that. Personally, I think the best way to help people, if you actually want to get involved in helping people, is to find out what's going on locally, what your local project is, and get plugged in and get educated about what the problems are for your area, and become a part of that, you know, that community trying to make a difference to people's lives.
Smiles, it's just seeing them smile, it's just amazing. It's the simple things, it's unbelievable.
The staff at West London Day Centre, they reach out to homeless people in similar situations such as me, in a way in which their help is very valuable, you know, in terms of getting you back into accommodation, you know, the various projects that the centre run, you know, art, English, musics, you know, sort of getting you back in the groove, reconnected to society.
Really, talking to them, being friendly, smiling at somebody. If you think about if somebody's sat on a corner somewhere all day long and haven't really spoken to anybody, giving your time, being nice and kind to somebody always goes a very long way. And the amount of people that just walk past somebody who are on the streets and don't even acknowledge them, just even say hello, are they okay, get them a drink, get them something to eat.
I think when you're trying to understand what how the world can cave in on someone and how that leads to deterioration of mental health. The best way I can kind of convey that to you is to tell you a story about a man who came to the service, who he was a builder, a foreman, struggled with backache over the course of a year. As a result, started to not be able to go to work. As a result, massive strain on his marriage. As a result, got kicked out. And so now he was homeless, started sleeping on people's sofas. While he's in that situation, found out that he had cancer. The sofa surfing came to an end, the grace period for that came to an end. So he ended up in a situation where he was getting chemo and sleeping in a churchyard at night. And you know, the impact on that man's mental health, as you can imagine, was huge. And it took 6 years of working with him to get him back to where he was. And eventually he did actually go back in to become a foreman. Has been working solid for 3 years now. The guy's done incredibly well against the odds. I mean, such a battle. What a warrior. So in the meantime, though, you can imagine how that hit him mentally, and the work that we had to do to try to support him through that. And you know, there's things that played into that, such as he was a very proud guy who had never applied for benefits before. He was so against the idea of applying for benefits. We had to work with him to get him to consider that for a while, because he really needed that help at one point. So you're working with good people a lot of the time. You're working with people who are hard workers, who have loads of potential, and who are battlers as well, and who I have grown to have a lot of respect for and learn a lot from. So it's really important that we have a balanced view when we're thinking about how someone's mental health can deteriorate.
So, while rough sleepers might be addicted, penniless, evicted, mentally or physically unhealthy, on warrants, ex-forces or fleeing abuse, it is clear that the causes and the circumstances of being homeless are vast, varied and difficult to solve. Like our young elephant, a teenager lost and alone on a journey to who knows where, the chances are they don't know where or who can help, even if they want help. There's certainly no one-size-fits-all solution, and although there is hope and support out there, these charities can't do it on their own. They too need support. So help these charities to help the homeless.
Not every story has a happy ending, and one person's idea of happiness is not another's. But with George, our lost and lonely youngster, he made it back to his herd.